Okay.
Because we're getting into it, class. Welcome to class, by the way. I'm now discovering my new freedom on the fly. Today, we're going to go over another combo. This is Combo 101, if you weren't aware. Second class. Don't ask why I have gym shorts on. I subbed for that class earlier today. And so now I have gym shorts on. Muscles and Magic, MTG, if you want to hang out, just let me know. I'm sure we got a lot in common, like muscles and magic. What are we... Hey, what was that face? Don't make that face. Today we're going to talk about Devoted Druid because, like, what was the card we did last week, class? Remind me. Basalt.
Obsolete Monolith. Basalt Monolith.
He meant Basalt Monolith. Yes, we did Basalt Monolith last week. This week we have a card that does very similar things, but it's a creature. And what is it? It is Devoted Druid. And what does it say? 2 mana for a creature elf druid. Power toughness 0/2. The 0/2 is important because what does this creature do? Devoted Druid taps to add green, and it has a second ability. Put a -1/-1 counter on this creature, untap this creature. That's important, right? Because you can tap to add green, put a -1/-1 counter on it to untap it, and then you get a second chance to tap it. You put another -1/-1 counter on it, it dies. So you get an extra tap of this once. Unless what, class? Unless you do one of these combos we're about to go over today. On the surface, you can only do this once. If you figure out ways to increase the toughness, you can do it more than once, right? This would allow you to do a lot more with cards like Tyvar the Pummeler or my next CEDH commander, Tyam. Tyam does a lot with Devoted Druid. We're not going to likely discuss Tyam today because that's going to be a very convoluted conversation about many layered combos and probably discuss it in the future when I'm done with that deck. Most often, Devoted Druid combos with anything that removes the creature type from the card, or with cards that make copies that are not creatures, or copy Devoted Druid and are not copies. So what do I mean by that? Let's say a card that's an artifact makes a copy of or becomes a copy of a permanent, but is an artifact. It can combo that way. Or makes a food token version of Devoted Druid that is not a creature. It can combo there. And we're going to discuss all these in the more in-depth portion of the class. But why would you want to do these things? Because you end up with typically infinite green mana, which is all you really need to win a game, I would say. Sometimes other colors, depends on what you're comboing with. You can get some other colors involved. But note, because these are typically infinite mana combos, they're bracket 4 and 5. Bracket 4 and 5. Why? Because infinite mana, typically in the early turns of the game. But we'll have some lower bracket combos for you to discuss later. That'll be a bonus. Wait for the end for that. What is the first combo we're going to discuss today? This is going to be Devoted Druid plus, I think the most common way I've seen it played, especially since the release of this new card, Swift Reconfiguration. What does Swift Reconfiguration do? It is a 1 mana, a single white mana for an enchantment aura flash, enchant a creature or vehicle. It's not a vehicle, so we're enchanting creature. And then enchanted permanent is a vehicle artifact with crew 5, and it loses all other card types. So now, what can you do with that? You target Devoted Druid for a single white mana. Devoted Druid's only 2 mana, so this is 3 mana for a Devoted Druid that is not a creature and has all of its abilities to tap for green and add a -1/-1 counter to untap it. So tap for green, untap by adding a -1/-1 counter to this permanent, which is now a vehicle, not a creature. So you can tap it again for green, untap it with a -1/-1 counter, tap it for green, so on and so forth. The only issue would be it is now a vehicle that if you crew and it becomes a creature, will likely die. But this is 3 mana, infinite green mana. Easy, right? We'll get into ways to spend that green mana later. It's going to be a lot of the same outlets as last week's Basalt Monolith. So that portion of last week's lesson carries over into this one. What's the next combo? This one I like a lot, actually, because squirrels. So next combo is going to be Devoted Druid plus Hazel's Brewmaster. Is 3 and a black for a creature Squirrel Warlock with Menace. Whenever Hazel's Brewmaster enters or attacks, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard and create a food token. Foods you control have all activated abilities of all creatures exiled with Hazel's Brewmaster. So you start by getting Devoted Druid into the graveyard. Then when Hazel's Brewmaster enters or attacks, either one, it's probably easier to not risk the attack or make it unblockable. It has Menace, so it has some evasion already on its own, but it has to enter or attack while Devoted Druid is in the graveyard. So then you make a food token that is not a creature, but has the abilities of Devoted Druid because you exile it with Hazel's Brewmaster. So simplify. Devoted Druid's in the graveyard. Cast or attack with Hazel's Brewmaster, exiling Devoted Druid from the graveyard, making a food token copy of Devoted Druid that is a food. So the food is now an artifact, not a creature, that has tap, add green, untap, add a -1/-1 counter, tap, add green, so on and so forth. So you see, as I explained earlier in the lesson, removing the creature typing from the card is the easiest way to break Devoted Druid. Combo number 3. This is basically the same as the last two, but you're comboing it with a card called Machine God's Effigy. If you're not in black, so you can't play Hazel's Brewmaster, you might play Machine God's Effigy. If you're not in white, if you're in green and white, that's the cheapest way to do this. If you're not in black and can't play Hazel's Brewmaster, then you might have to move down to Machine God's Effigy because you're in blue. So what is Machine God's Effigy? It's a 4-mana artifact. You may have Machine God's Effigy enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it's an artifact and has tap, add blue. In parentheses, it's not a creature. Tap, add blue. So this adds a little bit of a mix, a color mix in here. So Machine God's Effigy can enter as a copy of Devoted Druid if you also have that in play. And then Machine God's Effigy now has tap, add green, as well as tap, add blue, as well as put a -1/-1 counter on this permanent, untap it. So now Machine's God, you have Devoted Druid in play as a separate permanent with its normal abilities, but then you have a permanent over here, Machine God's Effigy, that now taps for blue or green and untaps by adding -1/-1 counters. But it cannot die because it is what? Not a creature. Right, class?
Right.
Okay. Making sure you're paying attention. All right, the next card is Tyvar the Pummeler. Tyvar the Pummeler does not combo by removing the creature type. How does it combo? Let's pull up the lesson plan and read it out loud for the class. Tyvar the Pummeler, 1 green, legendary creature, elf, warrior. Tap another untapped creature you control. Tyvar the Pummeler gains indestructible until end of turn. Tap it. I think most of that's irrelevant because the second ability, 3 green, creatures you control get +X until end of turn, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. How does this work? This is probably the most convoluted combo yet of the class, so let's make sure you're paying attention. What do you have to do? Tyvar and Devoted Druid both on the battlefield. You control a creature with power 5 or greater, which is neither one of these cards, unfortunately. Then you have to have the 5 mana available for Tyvar's second ability. So what you're doing here is you're going to try and outpace the -1/-1 counters, because as you add those, you should be able to pay 5 mana. You'll see. We'll get there. Activate Tyvar by paying 5 mana, giving creatures you control at least +5/+5 until end of turn. Then from there, you can start tapping and untapping the Devoted Druid by tapping, adding green, adding a -1/-1 counter, untapping it, so on and so forth. From there, you should be able to spend some of that mana to reinvest into Tyvar's second ability, giving creatures you control +5/+5 at least again. So it takes multiple abilities from multiple creatures to make this work. And you're just outpacing the -1/-1 counters by giving it +X, where X is at least 5. So that you can pay for the 5 available, for the 5 of the activated ability of Tyvar. Does that make sense, class? Does that make sense? That is the most convoluted one. So Devoted Druid adds -1/-1 counters. You need to pay at least 5 mana for Tyvar's ability, so you need to get at least +6/+6. All right, so Tyvar the Pummeler, not the one I would recommend. It is in mono green though, which is nice to have as an option, maybe a backup option if you are in mono green and Tyvar also fits the theme of your deck. However, this is still brackets 4 and 5 only because it is infinite mana. Tyvar is 3 mana. It's pushing it a little bit. We are playing 4 and 5 mana spells in brackets 4 and 5. But if Tyvar is your commander, this is basically a 1-card combo. All you got to do is find Devoted Druid. All right, now Tyam. This we're gonna save because you thought Tyvar was you thought Tyvar was convoluted. Tyam is the most convoluted. It's many layers, many steps, many ways to break Devoted Druid with Tyam because you get counters several different ways. So I'm building Tyam as a CEDH deck. We will discuss this one later. If you want to see that, like and subscribe. Turn in your homework. That's what I mean. Turn in your homework. Make sure you're getting, go onto the Canvas side. Make sure you're responding to your classmates in here and doing what you need to do. And we'll talk about Tyam in the future. What's another way we could combo that doesn't remove the creature type, but also happens to change the creature type of creature of Devoted Druid? That would be Mikaeus the Unhallowed. So now you're in green and black. We had Hazel's Brewmaster, but now we're in black with Mikaeus the Unhallowed. What does he do? 3 black. Very difficult to cast. In brackets 4 and 5, it's doable, but this is not the end game usually in brackets 4 and 5, but it's still locked to brackets 4 and 5 by the virtue of it being an infinite combo, infinite mana. So Mikaeus the Unhallowed, 3 black, legendary creature, zombie cleric, intimidate, an old word we don't see too often anymore. I think we've got menace kind of replaced that. Whenever a human deals damage to you, destroy it. Not super relevant because other non-human creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Undying. What is Devoted Druid? What creature type is Devoted Druid, class?
Green.
Oh shit, can't turn my back. Hold on. No, wrong. Other class. Other student over here.
Elf Druid.
Boom, perfect. Student B got it. Student A, you need to stay after class for some remediation. Okay, so Mikaeus the Unhallowed, other non-human creatures you control get +1/+1 and have Undying. Devoted Druid is an elf, a non-human, therefore it has Undying. What does Undying say? If a creature would die, instead, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Return it to the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter. So let's say you tap for green, untap it, adding a -1/-1 counter. Tap for green. No, it still has a +1/+1 counter on it, or still gets +1/+1, not a counter, from Mikaeus passively. So you could do this twice now. Then the third time you do this, it has 3 -1/-1 counters on it. It would die. However, it's a non-human, so it comes back as an O2 with +1/+1 from Mikaeus, plus a +1/+1 counter. So what happens when you tap this to add green and then decide to untap it for a -1 and add a -1/-1 counter on it? What happens?
Cancel out.
Yes, your -1/-1 counter and your +1/+1 counter cancel out. And so now Devoted Druid is a 0/2 with passive +1/+1 from Mikaeus, and then you continue this process. Every time it dies, it will have 2 -1/-1, or no, 3 -1/-1 counters on it, but no +1/+1 counters. That's all that Undying cares about, is its and especially Mikaeus. All non-human, Devoted Druid maintains that fact, has Undying. Undying checks for a +1/+1 counter on it. Not any other counters, no vigilance. It doesn't care about vigilance. It doesn't care about -1/-1 counters. It doesn't care about any of those. So if it dies while it has a +1/+1 counter, this would not work. But you're using -1/-1 counters and canceling it out. So this is a simpler one, but very expensive mana-wise to cast. And you're also in 2 colors, so do with that what you will. Not my go-to. We got some bonus combos though. Those are the most commons. Here's some bonus ones. What do we got? Up until this point, these have all been legendary creatures or very cheap, like 1, 2 mana, 3 mana cards. I take that back. 4 mana for Machine God's Effigy, but it also taps for mana. But they're all 1 card plus Devoted Druid. So note that these are very effective, cheap, easy, small package, whatever you want to say. These are easy combos to do. And cast, because most of them are 2 colors. They're 2 cards and 1 or 2 colors. Fairly easy. So all of these combos, outside of one, produced infinite mono green. What do you want to do with that? Probably play your whole deck. Thrasios, outlet, great outlet for that. Like last week, Staff of Domination. I'm not going to explain the Staff of Domination. That probably deserves its own video. Staff of Domination, Walking Ballista, a colorless spell that just wins on the spot with infinite mana. We got that. Treasure Vault. You could turn infinite green into infinite treasures, and you have any color you want. Again, same as last week's Basalt Monolith lesson. Do that. All right, what's our first bonus combo? Our first bonus combo is Luxior, Gyada's Gift. Why? Because it's funny. Why is it funny? Because Luxior, Gyada's Gift is actually kind of a pet card for me. I'm not playing bracket 3 like I used to back in the day, but this is a fun combo. What does Luxior, Gyada's Gift do? 1 mana for a legendary artifact equipment. This is the first piece of equipment that helps us out with this combo. The equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each counter on it. Equipped permanent isn't a planeswalker and is a creature in addition to its other types. That line of text is relevant because you can equip this to planeswalkers, making them creatures for 1 mana, or you can equip it to creatures for 3 mana. So for 1 mana and then 3 mana to equip it to Devoted Druid. Devoted Druid now gets +1/+1 for each counter on it, but you can add a -1/-1 counter to it to add green. So now you just tap, untap with net neutral power toughness. Simple, easy. It's just many people aren't playing equipments like that. If you're already in an equipment deck and in green, good combo there. What else we got? Our bonus 3-card combo. Up to this point, all 2-card combos. This is the first 3-card combo. And this is one that has a combined 17 lines of text. So I'm just going to read them off for you and you figure it out. Yeah. Explain it to me in the comments below, class. Do that for me, because this is a lot of text. We've got Agatha's Soul Cauldron. If you're familiar with this card at all, you know it does a lot for very little mana. It's a 2 mana legendary artifact. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to activate abilities of creatures you control. Creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them have all activated abilities of all creature cards exiled with Agatha's Soul Cauldron. And it also taps to exile a creature card from a graveyard. When a creature card is exiled this way, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Okay, so you have to have that in play. You got Devoted Druid, of course. And the third card you need is Incubation Druid. Incubation Druid is a 2 mana 0/2 creature elf druid that taps to add 1 mana of any type that a land you control could produce. If Incubation Druid has a +1/+1 counter on it, add 3 mana of that type instead. And for 5 mana, you can adapt 3, which says if this creature has no +1/+1 counters on it, put 3 +1/+1 counters on it. That's literally 17 lines of text plus some reminder text. You can figure it out. If you can solve that and tell me in the comments below, that'd be great. End result, infinite colored mana. Somehow, a lot of explanation, a lot of words to explain infinite mana. All right, now the best bonus combo we have here. The last bonus combo of the day for your decks that are below brackets 4 and 5, because the rest of these combos made, infinite mana. This one does not make infinite mana, but it's a bonus combo you could do in brackets 1, 2, 3. We got a hand raised over here. You have an idea?
I know what it is.
You have an idea what it is?
I know exactly what you're talking
All right, come up to the front of the class. Tell us what you think it is.
Gravity Sphere and Moat. This is the easy 2-card combo that you were talking about. I knew what you were thinking. You were thinking about Devoted Druid, but honestly, this is the best way to go at it because Gravity Sphere is a 3-drop in red, so it's 2 colorless and 1 red. It says all creatures lose flying ability. And then Moat is a 4-drop, 2 colorless, 2 white. Non-flying creatures cannot attack. Not only is this going to be a great combo to have, it's also going to be very cheap to afford because everybody should be running this. Even if you're a high-level player, bracket 4, bracket 5, you should be playing this because both cards are fairly cheap to afford. But also it blocks all the flyers out there. All your opponents are running flyers anyways, so why not just deal with it right up front and take care of it? That's the combo I wanted to talk about, and I know that he was thinking this.
I think he just wants to play Magic forever. No, nothing can attack? What? No, you want to attack with one really big thing. One really big thing. So the actual combo I was thinking of was Devoted Druid plus Quill Spike. We already know what Devoted Druid does. Taps, add green, untap, add a -1/-1 counter. But now what if you could spend that green and remove the -1/-1 counter to make something get +3/+3? That's what Quill Spike does. Quill Spike, 2 in a hybrid Golgari, right? Right class? Green-black?
Yeah.
Golgari? Golgari hybrid. Remove a -1/-1 counter from a creature you control. Quill Spike gets +3/+3 until end of turn. This is a 2-card combo that makes you a non-evasive, it literally doesn't even have flying, but you can make it as big as you want. Who doesn't want that? That's the actual bonus combo of the class today. Beyond that, there's still, like Basalt Monolith last week, there's a million ways to break Devoted Druid. You just got to remove the creature type on the card, make a non-creature copy of it. Don't play Sphere of whatever class student over here was saying that's only if you want to spend some money and play Magic forever.
It's cheap.
How cheap? I forget. You remind me. Which Devoted Druid combo did you like the most? Which one did I miss? I'm sure there's a million of them. Let us know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, do your homework. The homework I assigned earlier, you know what that was. That's like and subscribe. Do it. So that student can buy a Mox Diamond. He's going to do that eventually. That's it for class today, and we'll talk soon.